One of the reasons people learn to dive is to interact with and observe aquatic life. It's also one reason why some people are afraid to scuba dive. The truth is that injuries caused by hazardous marine life are rare and usually result from the diver being careless or an animal reacting defensively. However, it is easy to avoid hazardous marine life injuries. And if one happens, first aid is simple to perform. Divers Alert Network has developed this video program to teach you how to identify potentially dangerous marine life and how to avoid these injuries. This video program presents some information found in Dan's First Aid for Hazardous Marine Life Injuries training program. It is recommended that all divers seek training in cardiopulmonary resuscitation, or CPR, scuba diving rescue and dive accident management, and the use of oxygen for scuba diving emergencies. Ask your Dan instructor or Dan retail store sponsor about these and other training opportunities. Hazardous marine life injuries fall into 4 broad categories: envenomations, bites, irritations, and poisonings. We'll look at each of these types of marine animal injuries. There are hundreds of venomous animals that live in the sea. Envenomation means to sting and deposit venom into a person. Different types of marine animals are venomous in different ways. Also, the severity of a venomous injury depends on a number of factors, including animal type, venom potency, and the amount of venom injected. Individual factors also play a role in the severity of injury. These include the age and health of the person stung and the sensitivity to the venom or other allergic reactions. Generally, venomous fish have spines that are used as defense mechanisms. Spines usually remain concealed until the animal feels threatened. Common venomous fish include lionfish, scorpionfish and stonefish, and stingray. Injuries caused by venomous fish usually occur due to accidental contact, such as when stepping on one while walking across a shallow reef structure or sand, or in handling or grabbing these fish. Warning signs of a venomous fish injury include a puncture or slashing wound, immediate pain, purple or black skin, and sometimes even cardiac or respiratory arrest. Although venomous fish injuries occurring to divers are rare, it's important to recognize how to avoid accidental contact. A different and more likely envenomation encounter occurs with animals like the jellyfish. In currents or when casually ascending a line, divers can easily brush into these free-swimming creatures and accidentally end up on the wrong side of the jellyfish's nematocysts or stinging cells. Jellyfish are hunters and use these stinging cells, found on their tentacles, to immobilize their prey. Contact stimulates nematocysts to fire, and a microscopic harpoon-like barb penetrates the skin and injects venom. The reactions to the stinging cells vary greatly, from mild to serious. Warning signs and symptoms include redness, welts, stinging, burning, swelling, blisters, unresponsiveness, shock, respiratory and cardiac arrest. Jellyfish that concern you include the Portuguese man-o'-war and box jellyfish, also known as a sea wasp. Because there are thousands of types of jellyfish, it's more important to recognize the specific signs and symptoms of jellyfish stings, provide appropriate first aid, and, if necessary, transport to the nearest medical facility. Other venomous animals in the ocean that divers need to be cautious of include fire coral, some sea anemones, and stinging hydroids. You don't find these creatures swimming, but they have nematocysts too, and sting when divers touch or brush against them. Avoiding these injuries is easy. Just practice good buoyancy control and avoid touching them. There are a number of other venomous marine animals that concern divers. They include the blue-ringed octopus, cone shell, sea snakes, and to a lesser degree sea urchins, some sponges, and bristleworms. Signs and symptoms of blue-ring octopus bite include nausea, vomiting, numbness, and fullness around the mouth, neck, and throat, paralysis, speech or swallowing difficulty, loss of coordination, respiratory distress or arrest, and possibly cardiac arrest. The octopus is small and its bite is painless. However, it injects a potent toxin that produces paralysis. Cone shells are also potentially dangerous to divers. A handled cone shell may inject a diver with a potent venom that causes pain, numbness, swelling, redness, respiratory distress or arrest, and possibly cardiac arrest. Although sea snake bites are rare, the venom is quite toxic. Try to identify or be able to describe the type of sea snake to the medical personnel so as to assist with administration of antivenom. The good news is that sea snakes aren't likely to react defensively, provided you leave them alone, and when they do bite defensively, they often don't inject venom. For sea urchins, bristleworms, and sponges, the signs and symptoms are localized and not life-threatening. First aid for venomous marine animal injuries is simple because they share similar attributes. You need to reduce the effects of the venom, whatever its origin. For fish spine injuries, apply heat to break down the venom. There are two ways to apply heat to the area. The first method is to apply heat packs and is commonly used when hot water is unavailable, such as on a dive boat. The second method is to immerse the area in hot water, 110 to 113 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius, for 30 to 90 minutes. Avoid excessive heat that may cause burns or other injury. For jellyfish and other stinging animals such as fire coral, hydroids, and anemones, soak or rinse the afflicted area with household vinegar or other mild acetic acid. This neutralizes any unfired stinging cells still on the skin. Finally, because individual reactions to venom can vary, severe allergic reaction to a venom is possible. Warning signs of severe allergic reaction include weakness, dizziness, nausea, flushed skin, itching, burning, swelling of the face, eyes, neck, and tongue, decreased level of responsiveness, respiratory distress or arrest, and cardiac arrest. Your first priorities are ensuring the airway, breathing, and circulation, followed by providing the injured diver any prescribed allergy medications, such as an EpiPen. Divers probably fear being bitten more than any other marine life injury. These injuries are very rare and generally occur due to the animal mistaking the diver for something else or due to defensive reaction. However, due to the terrifying aspects of an attack, divers overestimate the probability. Marine animals that may bite include sharks, moray eels, barracuda, sea lions or seals, octopus, and some small fish. Common warning signs of bites include pain, bleeding which sometimes can be dramatic, lacerations or punctures, debris in the wound such as teeth, and shock. Although frightening, these injuries are typically minor and don't require follow-up at a medical facility. The primary concern is to prevent further injury and to get out of the water. Next, ensure basic life support, control bleeding, and manage the wound appropriately. Irritations are another type of injury that aquatic organisms can cause. These are rarely life-threatening and more of an inconvenience than anything else. Types of animals that cause skin irritations include coral and barnacle cuts, some sponges, soapfish, and some sea cucumbers. These injuries are easy to avoid and rarely require more than making sure the wound is clean and free of infection. Finally, another type of problem that can occur to divers is poisoning from seafood. Types of poisoning of particular concern are ciguatera, scombroid, and shellfish poisoning. Warning signs of seafood poisoning include allergic reaction, diarrhea, headache, vomiting, nausea, abdominal cramping, dizziness, paralysis, chills, muscle and joint aches, fever, reversal of perceived hot and cold, and tingling around the mouth and lips. These vary based on the type of ingested poison, and it's critical that the ill diver receives medical care for definitive treatment from a professional. Because the signs and symptoms of seafood poisoning are similar to decompression illness, or DCI, a medical professional should rule out the possibility of DCI and provide appropriate assistance. In general, to avoid seafood poisoning, always eat cooked fish and avoid eating fish known to be potentially unsafe, like large reef fish such as barracuda. It's also important to properly preserve, refrigerate, and prepare the fish. Despite taking these precautions, there is still the risk that you may be poisoned by the seafood that you eat. While hazardous marine life injuries appear dramatic and possibly life-threatening, these injuries are rarely serious and generally cause minor discomfort. However, knowing what animals can cause you harm is the first step to avoiding injury. While hazardous marine life injuries can be life-threatening, most injuries result from diver carelessness. For example, a diver with poor buoyancy control accidentally lands on a stonefish. Or a fatigue diver inadvertently grabs hold of fire coral. You can prevent these situations easily. The key is to follow safe diving practices. If an animal acts in an aggressive manner, it is likely due to a defensive reaction to a perceived threat from the diver. For example, putting your hand into a lobster hole isn't the best way to find out that it's home to a moray eel. If you step on a stingray while entering the water, it will defend itself from your attack. Suggestions to reduce the risk of hazardous marine life injury include practicing neutral buoyancy control. By staying off the bottom and avoiding accidental brushes of your hands, arms, and legs on coral and other animals, you reduce the most common cause of aquatic injury for divers. Be aware of your surroundings. Develop a sense of where you are in the water column. If you're busy looking at marine life or taking pictures, it's important to know where the reef and bottom are. Watch where you put your hands and feet. Look up and around as you ascend slowly. Be careful in jellyfish-inhabited areas and watch upcurrent as well as overhead. Avoid holding on to the ascent-descent line without gloves. Jellyfish and other stinging critters may get caught in the line or even live in permanent mooring lines. Shuffle your feet and wear thick-soled boots or fins when entering the water in sandy or muddy bottoms. Streamline your body and equipment for maximum efficiency in the water to avoid fatigue. Tired divers are more likely to grab the reef and accidentally touch hazardous marine life. Plan your dive and include knowing what hazardous marine life risks are present. Before diving in an area where you have had no prior experience, find out what marine life could cause harm to an unwary diver. If possible, take an environmental orientation dive with a dive master or other local guide. It's recommended that you carry a first aid kit to manage hazardous marine life injuries. Choose or assemble your kit according to the number of divers and travelers, the first aid and medical training of the group, and the distance to the nearest professional medical assistance. The key components of a first aid kit include medical information or reference, wound cleaning and management tools, bandages and dressings, tools and other instruments, waterproof packaging. Dan carries a wide variety of first aid kits to meet the various needs of divers worldwide. Ask your instructor or call Dan for information on the best first aid kit for the areas that you dive. Remember to pack your first aid kit and make sure that the components have not expired. Wear appropriate exposure protection, including gloves and boots. In warm water, thin dive skins help minimize the risk of accidental contact of the skin with hazardous marine. While gloves protect you from potential injury, gloves increase the likelihood of touching the reef, and many areas ban divers from wearing them. However, you should wear gloves when appropriate, such as when wreck diving, diving in strong currents, and, of course, diving in cold water. Avoid carrying speared fish when diving in areas known to be populated by sharks. When taking pictures underwater, avoid using the reef for stabilizing yourself. If you have to steady yourself, try to touch the sand or dead coral to make as little contact as possible. Avoid picking up shells. Some hazardous marine animals live inside shells and may inflict injury. Avoid touching unknown animals. If you don't know whether the animal is harmless, it's best to just observe the animal from a distance. Avoid eating raw fish, and don't eat fish that are known to be possibly poisonous. Finally, the most hazardous marine life you're likely to encounter is yourself and your buddy. Far more injuries and fatalities occur to divers due to their own lack of training, skills, or experience. Common risks include poor dive planning, poor diving skills such as buoyancy control and emergency management skills, diving beyond one's capabilities, and poor execution of your dive plan. Although decompression illness and diving injuries caused by hazardous marine life are rare, you can easily minimize your risk of illness or injury by following the standard safe diving practices and by being a responsible diver. Diving provides many opportunities to observe and interact with the creatures of the sea. Most of these encounters result in experiences that are truly memorable for the diver. However, in rare circumstances, these interactions with marine life can become hazardous. During this program, you learned how to identify potentially hazardous marine life and the warning signs and symptoms of injuries caused by common marine creatures. You also learned some basic first aid measures for hazardous marine life injuries. You learned the steps you can take to minimize your risk of injury from hazardous marine life. Finally, it's important to prepare an emergency assistance plan. The crucial elements of an emergency assistance plan include contact information, known allergies, and any currently used medications for all members of the diving group. You'll also want to gather contact information for the local emergency medical services, local hospital, and Divers Alert Network. If you're interested in learning more and becoming trained to provide these first aid techniques, contact Dan or your local Dan retail store sponsor to sign up for Dan's First Aid for Hazardous Marine Life Injuries course. In the unlikely event that you have to handle a diving emergency, whether decompression illness or marine life injury, contact Divers Alert Network, DAN, through the DAN Emergency Hotline. Founded in 1980, DAN is an international nonprofit dive safety organization committed to improving diving safety and to conducting dive research. With its international headquarters located in the United States at Duke University Medical Center in Durham, North Carolina, DAN also has affiliates in Southeast Asia Pacific, Japan, Southern Africa, and Europe that can assist you in the unlikely event of a scuba diving accident or injury. If you suspect you've been injured while scuba diving, you can call a DAN Diving Emergency Hotline. DAN provides this service to the diving community 24 hours a day, 365 days a year to assist and arrange for evaluation and treatment of injured divers. Whenever you need help, DAN is there for you. DAN works to prevent diving injuries and accidents. If you have a question concerning diving medicine, dive safety, fitness for diving, or for a referral to a physician knowledgeable in diving medicine, you can call DAN's Diving Medical and Safety Information Line. DAN also conducts research into why divers get hurt, looking into how flying after diving and various environmental and physiological conditions may affect diving safety. Another way DAN improves dive safety is through training and education. DAN has developed an oxygen first aid program and related oxygen delivery equipment to promote the benefits of emergency oxygen first aid for injured divers. Dan also offers training programs for physicians and emergency medical services personnel. Dan wants to ensure that oxygen and someone trained in its use is available at every dive site and on every dive boat. Dan provides these valuable services to the entire dive community because of the support of the world's largest association of recreational divers, the Dan membership. For a small annual fee, Dan members receive many valuable benefits, including Alert Diver, diving's leading safety magazine; Dan Travel Assist, access to potential evacuation in a medical emergency when you travel; and the opportunity to purchase the most affordable and comprehensive dive accident insurance available. Ask your Dan instructor or retail store sponsor how to get involved today. Dan is your dive safety association.